Hi there, dance studio owners, and welcome to a very special 4-part series of the Transform My Dance Studio podcast. Throughout the month of March, we are celebrating the dance studio owner's inner by bringing you something extra special on the podcast. In fact, this is the first time ever that we have shared with you a sneak peek into our exclusive Dance Studio Owners Inner Circle virtual retreats. That's right. Over the next 4 weeks, you'll have your own front row ticket into our Inner Circle retreats, where we are sharing with you some of the best moments from our world-class speakers. If you love this exclusive recording, and we know you will, make sure to join our waitlist at dsoa.com/innercircle. Now, let's welcome this week's special guest.
I'm going to tell you a little bit about her before we jump on in. Over the past 15 years, she has assessed, treated, educated, and empowered some of our most vulnerable and precious souls on the planet. She's a child psychologist by trade, but she rarely treats kids. The answers, she believes, is in the people who hold them. Some of her favorites include you guys, educators, parents, first responders, and foster parents. She's shifted the way they think and feel about the holy work that they do. Our speaker today has been one of our most requested speakers in Inner Circle history, especially from our Canadians. Are there any Canadians here? Let us know in the chat. Any Canadians here? Our speaker today is going to be sharing the 5 brave moves to write the next pandemic chapter. You are in for a treat. Welcome, Dr. Jody Carrington.
Clint, how's the day?
The day's been amazing. I mean, we started at 12, so we're a couple of hours in. You're our 3rd presentation, and we are excited for your session with us today.
Okay, I am super excited for my session with you today. That intro was fantastic. It's my favorite part of any time I give a talk because I wrote it. And here's the thing. I can see the chat. So you can see the chat too, right? If there's something, Clint, that you want me to stop and answer.
Yeah.
Hi, Heather.
Yeah, 100%. I've got the chat. You can just do your thing. I've got you covered.
Okay, so if there's something that you want to, ladies, gentlemen, if there's something you want me to answer, you can stop me at any time. We got an hour. I'm going to talk about lots of things, but if there's something you need to know, then just do it. And I'm happy to stop and take a time out anytime we need to.
Awesome.
Okay?
Let's do it.
All right. Awesome. Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm going to see if I can see all of your faces, which I really love about this process. So, look at you. You're so beautiful. Turn your cameras on because if you don't got a bra on, I don't care because it's a global pandemic. It's fine. You're eating your lunch, doing your laundry. Come on. It's the end of everything here, so it's fine. It don't matter. Yes, Michelle, your hair looks just fine, girl. Don't you worry about it. Okay, so here's full disclosure before we start about anything. The best dance moves I got involve a Ukrainian kick in the middle of a polka, okay, that I might have learned at the community hall in Viking, Alberta in 1983, okay? I watched Dancing with the Stars religiously. Go Caitlin Bristow. What in the name of Jesus was What's Her Nuts wearing last night? Maybe we could talk about that. What's her name? The lady who does all of the things, the front, you know, what's her name? Come on, Clint. What's her name?
Who are you talking about? The host?
Tyra Banks.
Oh, Tyra Banks. Oh yeah, we don't need to talk about her.
What was happening there, Tyra? Girl, we need to chat. Anyway, probably I asked Clint the last time we met. I was like, "This is the only thing I know. Do you watch Dancing with the Stars?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "Okay, cool." That I was just trying to be on the same page, and so we're not. Okay, so it's fine. So here's the thing that I know about a lot is relationships and connections and kids. And another full disclosure part is that I'm not a fan of kids. I own 3 of my own, and I'm still not a huge fan. I am a much bigger fan of the people who hold them, which is why for the rest of my career, I will serve people just like you who spend a lot of time with other people's children. And here's what I know about the holy work that you do. You will walk babies home through some of their most difficult experiences. What's it like to be in a competition? What's it like to lose? What's it like to get a broken heart? What is it like to be chosen over somebody else? How do you calm a crazy, my daughter watches the Dance Moms. If that is anything close to the reality that you got going on here, you should be paid more. Okay? Because generally the children are not the problem. Huh? If you can harness them parents who think their children are headed straight to the cruise ship lines or Dancing with the Stars, it would be easier, you know? Because here's the issue, what we're going to talk a lot about today. I spent 10 years I started, it was actually a teacher who changed my life. I had one of the best hockey coaches ever. And through some of the biggest transitions of my life, and it wasn't actually my parents, who are both fairly phenomenal. It was the people in my life, my educators, who walked me home through hard things. And I don't know that we ever give ourselves enough credit. When you think about why you got into this business, you know, owning a business is a big responsibility, but often we are inspired by somebody who saw us. Often we are inspired. So if I think about your greatest mentors, your best teacher, you know, get them in your head right now. Either, you know, it was a K to 12 teacher, a coach, a somebody. There's usually two reasons why we want to lead people to do great things. It's because somebody did it for us, or they missed it. And sometimes we have both of those experiences equally, you know, as prominent in our minds. And the fundamental basis of all of that is when you are seen, you will rise. When you are acknowledged, you will rise. The Indigenous culture in this country has taught me so much over the last 6 months. They talk a lot about the importance of acknowledgement. And when you are acknowledged, you will rise. And so I learned that from teachers from a very early age. And then I decided I wanted to work with first responders because I have a massive interest in trauma and how trauma really messes up, you know, our experiences and how we show up in the world. And after I did my residency, they said, you have to do a rotation with kids. And I said, I don't like kids. Stop trying to make me try to like the kids. And they were like, you're kind of like one. We think you'd be a good fit. Oh, from the host, please rename yourself to T or M. Is that for me?
Okay. That's not for you. That's not for you. You can.
My name is Dr. Dodie Carrington with a C. Okay. Anyway, and so what happened in that process is I fell in love with kids, and very early I learned that the ones who struggle the most just need somebody to acknowledge them, and they will rise. And some of the most significant work you will do in your ownership of a dance company, a dance studio, is notice the babies who don't get acknowledged. You may have some legacies that come out of your respective studios. They may rise and go on to do great things, and you're going to sit in an auditorium one day and watch them spin. I'm sure they do a lot more than that, but you know what I mean, jump and things. Your most significant legacy is holding the stories of the babies who are not seen. And oftentimes it is in our teachers, our instructors, our coaches, our mentors who set us on a different path when we need to be seen the most. And I'll tell you, after I finished doing a rotation with kids, I realized that is where I needed to be. I needed to serve this population. And I learned really quickly that it's not about the babies, it's about the people who hold them. And my first job was on a locked psychiatric inpatient unit for kids here in Alberta, Canada. It's called the Alberta Children's Hospital. And it's sort of the center of excellence in this province where kids go with psychiatric conditions. And when I first started there, what we basically did is we locked them up from 6 to 8 weeks to try to figure out what the heck was wrong with them. Listen, I also swear a lot, and Clint said to me, please try not to swear. So I'm going to try my ever loving best, but I do not mean to offend anybody. I'm from small town Alberta. I grew up in a gravel pit. It just sometimes happens. So if it does, you can send all of your complaints directly to Clint. Okay. Anyway, back on track. So here, when I talk about really exciting things, here's what you need to know is that passion is the thing that I wish people had more of. And I got too much of it some days. So buckle up, bitches. I'm just kidding. Not really. Okay. So I feel like that's a safe word here. It's a good word here in this universe. It is not a word I use when I talk to cops a lot. They are not fans of that word. But anyway, back up. Children's Hospital, what happens is we have kids who have a litany of diagnosis, long stories of what might be wrong with these babies. We lock them up and we diagnose them and try to figure out what's wrong with them, okay? And we try to treat them, often in isolation. We rarely look at the people who hold them. And if you treat a kid, if you try to take down a wall without knowing why it was put there, it is the biggest mistake you will ever make. If you try to take down a wall without knowing why it's there, it is the biggest mistake you will ever make. So I started to learn from these babies and families that it was really not about the behavior that we needed to modify. It was really about the stories in which those behaviors were being told. And one of the things that I learned the most, I never learned this in grad school. So it took me 12 years to get a PhD. And it took me probably the next 6 to really learn what I needed to know. And here's the one thing that I learned. I, as a child psychologist, rarely see kids. I will always refer to the people who hold them. Now, when I have to assess a kid, that's a different story because I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. When I treat them, treating a kid in isolation is a waste of time. Treating a kid in isolation is a waste of time. And if I am servicing a child, if I am owning a dance company or I'm coaching them hockey, which is a big thing I do up here in Alberta, Canada, I love hockey. So I can't speak dance, but I can speak hockey like you don't even know. I still think I'm going to make the NHL. You should see how fast I can get a kid to skate when I know the name of his dog. That's a really good thing you should write down. You should see how fast I can get a kid to skate when I know the name of his dog. When you are acknowledged, you will rise. And I often speak to parents, because parents will bring me their kids. I'm really worried about my kid. What do we need to do about this behavior? He's a hitter, kicker, liar, attention-seeking, manipulative. Blah, blah, blah. I hear that all the time. And I say, oh my gosh, this sounds like this is trouble. This is trouble. We need to figure this out a little bit more. Tell me more about your baby. Will you see them? And I say, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see them, but I'd love to spend some time with you first. Right? Why do you think I'm the problem? And I say, no, not at all. You are not the problem. You are the solution. You are not the problem. You are the solution because you can bring your baby to me every day, gold standard treatment, 1 hour, once a week. I will hold them. I'll play the ever living Jesus love out of Uno Flip. Feed them all the candies. Charge you $190 on a good day. And what matters during that moment is that I'm seeing them and I'm hearing their story because it never changes. You never grow out of this. You are acknowledged, you will rise. And here's the one thing that parents often ask me, when I say to them, what do you want for your child? So if you own your own personal children, you're not just walking, the community or the children of your community through hard things. If I were to ask you what you wanted for your child, generally what people say to me is, I just want them to be happy. So that's really lovely, Sandy. And if I ask parents to say 3 more things, what are 3 more things that you want for your kid? They say, okay. If I had to choose 3 more things, I'd like them to do well in school, okay, because it's very important to get an education. And I would like them to have friends because I don't want them to be a loser, I want them to hang out with the good kids, And I'd love them, if I'm going to get really saucy, to give back to the world in some way. I'd love them to be empathic and kind and give back. Here's the thing. You cannot do any of those things well if you do not have one single capacity. It is the thing that I speak to educators about across North America. It is the thing I speak to police officers about on a daily basis. Our biggest job as humans is to teach little people this one skill. It is called emotional regulation. Emotional regulation means basically how not to lose your friggin' mind. When you have the capacity to not lose your friggin' mind, you will rise. Okay? To stay calm when things get shaky. To stay calm when things get out of control. How do you stay regulated when life gets tough? Because it will. Full stop. When you bring a baby home from the hospital, how do they let you know what they need? They cry. Yeah? They get emotionally dysregulated. They got one skill on board. Actually, they have 3. The most primitive part of the brain for all of us humans is wired like this. We have fight, flight, and freeze on board. That's basically how we communicate because we don't have a language. So when I bring a baby home from the hospital, they lose their friggin' mind when something is not okay. And what is the job of big people? To regulate emotion. Okay. I'm going to give you a quote right now that changed my life. I live by quotes. And these string of words found me at exactly the time that I needed them to find me. Okay. It's a quote by a dead guy. Most people who know anything about life are dead because it's funny how that works. But this fella's name is Ram Dass. He's one of the greatest philosophers, in my opinion, of all time. And he wrote a book of the same title. He said this: we are all just here walking each other home. We are all just here walking each other home. That quote hangs over my right shoulder. You can see it in my office. I look at it every single day because it's not an end game. I have to be reminded of that every single day. We are all here walking each other home. Most of us have no friggin' idea what we are doing in our marriages, with our children, with our partners. We are all here walking each other home. Now, if you look at the Instagram, it looks like everybody got their shit together. They don't. Nobody knows. Not a clue. Okay, I wrote a book called Kids These Days about how to raise children. If you watch me with my own personal children, you would not buy the book. Okay? We can tell people how to do it. Are you still there? Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, good. You just went off my screen. Okay. If you watched me with my own personal children, I got 3 actually. I had one when I was 36. Such a good idea. I thought I was so good at it. We got pregnant again right away because my husband was like, let's get this shit under control. And Jesus said to me, you were so good with one that we are going to put 2 in your uterus at the same time on a 5-foot friggin' 3 Ukrainian chassis. We feel like we are going to stretch that body to places where you will never get it back again because you're so good. Let's give you twins. I've never felt more incompetent in my whole life because I own 3 kids under 2. I have a PhD in child psychology. Okay, my personal husband, also not on paper dumb. He got a PhD in how to feed cows, ruminant nutrition, from the University of Michigan. Is it University of Michigan? No, don't say it. If I don't get it right, he will lose his mind. Anyway, I'll come back to that. We had 6 degrees between us. And you know what happened when we brought the first tiny human home? We were bouncing. He woke up. I put him on a schedule because that's what I read for years as a child psychologist. I've told people how to handle their children. Put them on a schedule. So I put the tiny human on a schedule. Guess what? He didn't follow it. 3 a.m. he wakes up. I'm fairly sure he got autism because I read about it, or hydrocephalus. So I took the tiny human and I started bouncing on one of them balls. You probably use them in your dance studio to get abs, you know? The big balls, which I was using to keep the kid alive. And I wake Aaron up because clearly that is what you should do. Wake the partner up, you know? And I said to him, I think the kid's dying. And so Aaron takes the kid and he got his head in his armpit. And then I remember as a child psychologist what the problem is. We're not doing skin to skin. So I say to my personal husband, take your shirt off. So he's naked, I'm naked, milk shooting everywhere because we're bouncing on the ball. The kid's still crying. And he looks at me, and I will never forget this. This is what he said to me. How do dumb people do this? Right? 6 degrees between them. One is in child psychology, and we don't have a clue. It was Michigan State. Thank you, M. Gwen Cappuccetti, with the backstage studio of dance. It was Michigan State. Go green, go white. I will now be able to face him after this talk. Anyway, so here's part of the problem with this issue. right, is that we all want everybody to think we know what we're doing. We don't. And we're trying to lead a group of people through hard things. We're trying to hang on to mamas and daddies and all of those things when they want what's best for their children. The majority of the work that you do is all about emotional regulation. How do you assist people? How do you walk them home through hard seasons? How do you stay calm so that you can walk them home? This Ram Dass quote just is the foundation of everything I do, because emotional regulation as a child psychologist is my number one kicker. When I ever see a child who is completely dysregulated, they won't do well in school. They won't be able to listen. They won't have any access to empathy or kindness or compassion because they're emotionally dysregulated. I first have to attend to that, to acknowledge, and then they will rise. I can't tell kids how to calm down. I have to show them. Right? Never in the history of telling somebody to calm down has got, who owns a husband or a wife? Huh? If you own one of them and you didn't get divorced during a global pandemic, good God, I don't even know you. You're amazing. Because right now, this virus is scary, but you know what scares me more? Emotional regulation. Everybody right now is chippy. Chippy. I don't know if you've noticed this about your personal partner. Chippy. The children. You thought they were nice. Chippy. You watch the children you're serving. If you're back face to face with any of these babies, teaching them how to do amazing things, they love it. They're okay. You know who's not okay? Their parents. Chippy. Because emotional dysregulation means I'm much more irritable. What feeds emotional dysregulation is when there's no lack of clarity, when fear is a part of things, and when there's no end in sight. Guess what this global pandemic has done for us? No clarity, there's fear everywhere, and there's no end in sight. And then for those of you in the United States of America, then Trump, anyways, never mind. It's fine. It's fine. You can come to Canada. We need you. Come on. Come on. Everybody got a mask on. It's all right. Anyway, back on track. So the deal around emotional regulation becomes really tricky because you cannot tell somebody how to do it. You got to show them. If I take you back to your infant, when you bring a baby home from the hospital, I couldn't tell that infant how to regulate emotion. I showed them. In fact, we are wired for connection. We're biologically wired for connection. If I disconnect from an infant, they will die. When they get distressed, it is my job to walk them home. You understand? The second, if you walked out of wherever you are today, your studio or your house, and there was a crying infant outside in a carrier, we are compelled to regulate that infant. We are wired for it, even if you have no experience with children. I watch this often with my first responders. When I see a police officer, a firefighter come on scene and there's kids involved, the burliest, roughest, toughest will emotionally regulate because we understand that we need to walk them home. Right? When I gave birth to our first child, a boy, I watched my husband, who is much more comfortable with a cow than he is with a kid. And I cannot hold the child at this particular moment. They gave Asher to Aaron, and I was like, oh, sweet mama, how's this going to go? And it's interesting to me how very quickly he found this story with his son. We are wired for connection, okay? The older kids get, the more inclined we are to tell them, not show them how to regulate emotion. But again, never in the history, the last time your partner, if you own one of them still, said to you, now listen just a second, you chose this one, right? You chose this one. I did not, unless you got pregnant at a bush party, which happens a lot in Alberta. You put considerable thought into choosing this partner, especially if you procreated, multiple times. There was a thought, there's something about this one, huh? Way back when, something about that one. And that person is much more comfortable, better when you're regulated. Yeah? You are much better, comfortable, inclined to love when they are regulated. Do you remember? Remember when they're regulated? You know the difference between emotional regulation and dysregulation? Remember on your second date, if they lost their friggin' minds, got emotionally dysregulated, would there have been a third date? Not likely. Because we are more inclined to fall in love with people who are emotionally regulated. Okay? And when you're at your best, when you look at a child, if you own your child, if you are coaching a team of children, they are at their best when they're emotionally regulated. They can learn. They have access to kindness, their manners. They have all of their words. They can use their words. When they get emotionally dysregulated, guess what they lose access to? Kindness, compassion, empathy, their words. Not unlike you and me, right? One of my favorites, Dan Siegel, wrote a book about this, and he's a psychiatrist who calls this emotional dysregulation process flipping your lid. Because the cortex of your brain actually goes offline and it comes limbic system into your brain. The very most primitive part of your brain takes over, fight, flight, or freeze. So think about the times that you flipped your lid, lost your friggin' mind, right? Done and said things that in the moment felt like absolutely necessary. And then what happened when that prefrontal cortex came back online? Oh, Lord. You know, guilt, shame, remorse, all of those things. Ugh, that was bad. Emotional dysregulation happens for a reason, because when I get into fight, flight, or freeze, it often keeps me safe. But most of the time, if nobody's ever taught me how to regulate emotion, when I get upset, that's all I have access to is fight, flight, or freeze. Our job is to walk kids home again and again and again through distress. The more I do that in the physical presence of my child, the less somebody has to do that when I'm not there. Does that make sense? 0 to 2, how many times does a baby flip their lid? Excessively. There's so many teachable moments. Isn't that nice? They just give us so many opportunities to walk them home. And if we have a village around our babies to do that, they start to learn the skills to regulate emotion much more effectively than if they have a group of a village around them that is not well, that is emotionally dysregulated themselves. Do you understand me? So I often hang out with kids who come from multiple generations of abuse, neglect, and trauma. And they are doing the best they can with what they got, because their response to emotional dysregulation has been things like, shut up! You're an idiot. So what happens then when they flip their lid, you ask them to do something that is not in line with what they want to do. They give you what they've been given. Shut up. Don't be an idiot, okay? Is it acceptable and appropriate? Not one time. Is it understandable? Absolutely. And when you take a tiny human, they have very little emotional capacity or emotional regulation capacity. Our job is to walk them home again and again and again. Yeah? Their job is to lose their minds. Our job is to walk them home, because guess what? I can't tell a kid how to regulate emotion. I got to show them. Because even when you're emotionally regulated and I try to practice this with you, I say, okay, you might have done this with your children. Okay, let's say you have a 5-year-old and a 8-year-old, and the 8-year-old flips his lid all the time, loses his mind, and you're like, okay, come here, Jackson. They usually have an X somewhere in their name. So Jackson with an X, come here, look at me. What's going to happen the next time your sister calls you a name? Okay, what are you going to do? Now, this baby, when you look at him, he's emotionally regulated. He has access to everything you've ever taught him. And so he's going to say things like this. Okay, I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to journal. I'm going to find an adult. I'm going to use my words. You're like, oh, muffin top. You're amazing. High five. What happens 37 seconds later when you go back, you take that phone call because you own a dance studio and you have very important phone calls to take, Jackson. And he turns around. You just went through it, you understand? And his sister says something to him and he throw punches her. And you're like, what is wrong with you? Look at me. We've just practiced. And you're like, what in the, you know what's wrong with him? That's what's thinking in your head. You're Googling. You're like, he got the ADHD. That's what he got. I'm Googling that. Oh my God. What is it? You know what? It's the genes. I shouldn't have married his father. That's right. I knew. He's going to get that somewhere. Look at him. Huh? And then you start to think, Jesus, maybe it's me. He don't act like that around grandma. He should have chose a different mom. That's it. It's my problem. Okay. First of all, take it down a notch, Susan. You're amazing, and so is this baby. She's doing exactly what we want them to do. I want your children to be the worst when they're with you. The longer you spend time coaching, leading, mentoring a group of people, I want them to be saucier with you. Because the more comfortable I am to get emotionally dysregulated, which is my number one priority in learning in this world, the more chances I get to practice that, the better I'll be able to handle when you send me to kindergarten, when I go to a sleepover when I'm 10, when I go to university, when I get into a relationship with my partner and he or she loses their mind. How do I stay regulated to be able to walk through those hard things? Somebody has to have shown me. And if you end up managing a group of people who struggle significantly with emotional dysregulation, you will not get any productivity out of them. If you work with a bunch of people who are emotionally dysregulated, the mamas, the dads, the grandparents, the cookums, the aunties, if they're emotionally dysregulated, it does not matter if you have the finest curriculum. You have hired the finest teachers. You have, I'm not even going to know what, like everybody's going to the ballet and the Nutcracker. Some dance lingo for you. It does not matter if you have the bars and the mirrors and the floors that are waxed. It does not matter. If you are attending to a staff who is emotionally dysregulated, they will not rise. If you are attending to a group of people who do not feel seen, heard, just dictated to, they will not perform. Your number one job as a leader in your organization is to walk people home first, and then you teach. First, and then you lead. You understand? So much about this, is a universal truth, which is why, ladies and gentlemen, I speak quite frequently to everybody that you can imagine. I had Farm Credit Canada where I talked to a bunch of combine dealers. I will say the same thing to them as I say to you. I talk to funeral directors. I talk mostly to teachers, cops, kids, anybody basically who will listen to me. And it is the same universal language. We are all just here walking each other home. And in the time of a global pandemic, what we're struggling with the most right now, the virus doesn't scare me nearly as much as the ramifications of disconnect around mental health. Because the only way we remember that we matter, the only way that we get through hard things is connection with other human beings. And when right now, for our safety, staying away from other people, that's my biggest concern. Don't underestimate your power to stay connected to your employees or the people who are learning from you via voice message, video chats. If you're conducting dance classes online, get those videos on, see those babies' faces, let them see you. Because if you only knew how much you mattered, sometimes you are the only steady for some of these families. Babies that are going through divorce or separation, kids that don't understand that they matter at school, particularly adolescents, when body issues become such a big issue, when there's emotional gender identity issues, all of those things. So much of this will fall onto you. And I want you to think about this for 1 second. Get the top 3 kids in your head who you'll never forget. The top 3 babies, the top 3 families who you'll never forget. The ones that remembered your birthday. The ones who you wish you could have back. The ones who died. I want to tell you this, if you only knew how much they think about you, you would do this for the rest of your life for free. And basically you do sometimes. So if you only knew, I promise you, if you can get them in your head right now, when they're nowhere in the room, I promise you this, they think about you 10 times as much. And here's where this became really clear to me. See, I grew up in a really small town, and so I can tell you the name, first and last name of every teacher I had, K to 12. And in grade 10, there was 22 of us that started kindergarten together. The same 19 of us graduated together. Okay, so think super small, protected, privileged community. And in grade 10, one of the most popular kids in our class was killed. And I remember where Mrs. Holly Nordstrom was standing when she told us about Neil. I remember what she was wearing. I have no idea what she said, but I remember how she made us feel. I also remember, this can be kind of weird, but I remember how she smelled. Okay. Wild Musk by Cody from the IDA. Okay. I bought it for years, wore it straight through university, $13.99. Coty with a T, not a D. Coty. Wild Musk. Still loved, ever loving Jesus out of that stuff because it takes me back to her. She had no idea. I wrote a book and I dedicated it to her. And when I called her 25 years after the last time I had seen her, and I said, Holly, do you remember that day? She said, oh, I remember losing Neil. I don't remember standing and speaking to you or the class. And I said, it is a moment I will never, ever forget. And 25 years later, I serve kids and families because of how you made me feel that day. So if you think running a dance studio is what you're doing, this is your calling in life, I mean, it might be. Maybe you're doing great in the middle of a global pandemic. I can be sure this isn't like all roses. You are walking people home through some of the hardest season that they will have in their life. And I think that sometimes then when we remember that as our purpose, our passion becomes exponentially greater. And it carries us through some of these times where disconnection becomes so difficult for our families, for our health, for our business. And so I think, from the premise of this emotional dysregulation place, I want to make sure I leave you today with 5 things that you can tuck into your back pocket as you sort of navigate your communities, your own children, your own families. Because when you own a business in the middle of a pandemic, here's the other things that don't change, right? People are still fighting cancer. People are still having babies. People are still trying to bury the people they love, all in new ways, and show up and stay connected to the things that they used to always do. So this whole piece around emotional regulation becomes really fascinating to me. And I think that the first thing I really want to talk about, Clint was talking about some brave moves that I want you to think about. The first thing for me is really this idea of just feeling it. If we don't hold space for just what we've been through, not just like as a community or a country, as a globe. I mean, this is what's interesting about this pandemic, right? It typically when hard things happen in our world, we are aligned to understand that there's a fire in Oregon or, there's a tsunami somewhere and, we're going to send money for this. We're going to do this. We're going to assist in regulating, but it's somewhere else. This is a global experience. And what we often don't do well enough is hold space for how hard it's been. Because if you are a mom, as a dad, a business owner, a teacher in any way, you are compelled to fix it. Most of us are not comfortable when people are emotionally dysregulated. We like it so much better when they're calm and things are good. You're good? Huh? It's good. So we either do 2 things. We either Mary Poppins the fuck out of it, which, it's very bad. Mary Poppins the ever-loving heck out of it, which means we're like, it's okay. We're all right. And if you cheer, I feel like this would be very up your thing. It's going to be okay. Ah, woo! Or we sink into the depths of despair and everything is awful. The government, there's no support for small business. People don't understand what this has been through. And you start surrounding yourself with people who just do nothing but bitch and complain. Okay? What's interesting about it is that we got to do both of those things. And they have to happen in a very specific sequence. We got to feel it and come up the other side. Dan Siegel talks about this. You have to name it to tame it. And unless we hold space for how difficult this has been, first for ourselves, you've been through a lot since March. You've pivoted so much. You've learned so much. You've been doing online stuff. Some of you didn't even know how to turn on a computer. And now you're conducting meetings. I mean, how many times have you said, you're on mute? How many times have you watched somebody try to have a conversation like this? Hey, turn your camera down. We have learned remarkable things in the last 6 months. If I were to have said to you in January, listen, you group of inner circle amazing souls, by March, we're going to go virtual. Your whole studio is going to be flipped to a virtual organization, okay? Can you imagine the focus groups the meetings, the funding opportunities we would have had to discuss. And instead, in 48 hours, we flip. The ramifications of that are massive, because what also happened is you balanced your own children and your own relationships and all of the financial constraints that came along with this. That's heavy. You got to name it to tame it. And here's the problem that happens in this space is that we want to fix it and it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. We'll get there. Hang on, Muffin Top. We got to go into this space first. We try to fix it with our kids. I don't want to wear a mask. I want to go back to school. I want to see my friends. Okay, it's okay. You'll be okay. The other thing that we try to do instead of naming it is we try to comparison is the thief of all joy. But we start to compare and we say, you know what? At least your father still has a job. What do you don't want to wear a mask? You're going to kill your grandmother. Is that what you want? But here's the issue. When you're 13 and you have to wear a mask, it is the end of the world. When you're 14 and you didn't get to go to the provincials that you worked so hard for, this is exhausting. This is not fair. When it's grade 12 and I do not get to walk that stage and wear that dress, this is stupid and I hate it and I hate you. I want to fix that. See, I want to be like, oh, don't you be so ungrateful. At least you're alive. Now, the intention behind that's beautiful, right? Because we don't want the people we love to be upset. But here's the issue. Perception is a function of experience. When you're 13, this is the end of the world. When you're grandma and you don't get to see your grandkids, right? Perception is a function of experience. My only job is to hold space in that emotion. Here's the 3 words that allow me to hold space for people, especially when I want to throat punch them. Tell me more. If I have a mom who has been bringing her babies to my studio year after year after year, and she is remarkably pissed off that her kid has to wear a mask when she dances because it's going to affect her performance, and I own an immunocompromised child, and my husband is a first responder who puts his life on the line every day for my community, guess how much space I'm going to have for her? 0. But perception is a function of experience, see? And in the community in which she rallies, if her kid doesn't make the fucking dance team, it's over. Does that make her right? Perception is a function of experience. And as a leader in this organization, when I'm regulated, I will say, tell me more, mama. And she'll say, I just feel like I'm missing. This was the only place we connected here when I brought her to the studio, and now I can't bring her. And I feel like I'm worried about her. I feel like, is she depressed? Like, am I failing her? Mad is sad's bodyguard. I have never met a mad who wasn't sad. Not one time. Mad is sad's bodyguard. And when I got people who, particularly as a leader, when they are not okay, I got to figure out what I'm missing. Is it exhausting? Yes. Do I get it right every time? Not one chance. Here's the thing as a parent, I only need to get it right 30% of the time. I actually only need to help my kids regulate 30% of the time for them to do well in this world and raise my grandchildren effectively. I can screw this shit up 70% of the time. You're welcome. Because generally what happens is we're like, oh my God, we're screwing our kids up. No, you're not. No. You're doing beautifully. You only need to get this right 30%, and it's an average. You can dip into the 20s. That's what I say, especially on a Friday. Dip into the 20s. Yes, sir. Mommy needs some wine. Because here's the thing, when I'm emotionally regulated, I will serve my children. When I feel incompetent, when I feel like I'm failing them, when I feel like they should have chose a different parent, all of those things, I'm not going to rise. So let me assure you right now that you're doing a beautiful job and that it is never too late. If you have kids people say this to me all the time, why didn't I know this? My kids are 25 and 27, like I need another chance. No, it's never too late. There's still hope for your husband. Emotional regulation is a thing that we constantly learn together in the relationships that are around us. And we are typically really good at this. If we own a business, we understand how to keep people regulated. The less skin you have in the game, the better you are at this. Do you understand me? You are so much better with other people's children than you are with your own. True? Huh? I mean, I coach minor hockey, you understand me? I coach novice C tier 677, which means these babies ain't making it out of Olds minor hockey, okay? Most of their parents think they're going to the NHL. These fellers don't even know a stick from a puck, okay? So they're coming in, and I love them. So they will say to me, Coach Jolie. Yes, sweetheart. Can you do on my skates? Yes, babe. Come here. Come on. Coach, can you fill out my water bottle? Yes, muffin top. And somebody, Coach, can we have a snack? Yeah, and I'm going through my bag, right? I got the bear paws and ring pops. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't give a shit. They're not my kids. Handing them out. My personal child, who's 7, the one who I asked Jesus specifically for. I got 2 sons and a daughter. I said to Jesus, I made a deal when I had 2 babies in my belly at one time. I said to Jesus, I will be phenomenally good as a parent if you make one a girl. Do you know what he said to me? Buckle up. He gave me. So she says in the dressing room, Mom, I say, what? Everybody else, I'm tying their skates, filling their water bottles, and they're whiny, Caillou, life-sucking little muffins. And my sweet baby says, hey, Mom, what? Because we're so much better with other people's children. You want to know why? Because I'm emotionally regulated. I watch you with your children. I think, oh, my God, it's okay. Come here. Your mom's a bit of a, woo, okay, yep, I'll do up your skates. Give mommy a break now. She can go for a rest. Because we're so much better with other people's children. And what it comes down to is I have less skin in the game. Can you do this job well? Absolutely. Can you lead a team and stay emotionally regulated? Absolutely. You're phenomenal at this. When you are reminded how amazing you are. And very few people, when you're the leader, when you're the boss, take enough time to say, thank you. Thank you for serving this community. Thank you for sticking with us in the middle of a COVID when I can't imagine how difficult this has been for you. Thank you for showing up for my kid online. Thank you for learning how to do these things. Thank you for being so proud of my baby. I want you to know how important you are to us, to our family. What can we do to make sure that you stay in business? When people say those things to you, I mean, there's nothing you wouldn't do. You rise, yeah? It's this power of complimenting people we're walking home with. Don't ever underestimate it. If you want moms and dads to show up for your community, be nice. It's shockingly powerful. And it's cheap. I mean, what happens the last time somebody gave you a compliment? If anybody ever came up to you, this is how affairs start in dance circles. When somebody ever comes up to you and they say, oh, Lisette, I saw your son yesterday. I got to tell you something. He's amazing. I don't know what you're doing, Mama, but you're doing something right. He's such a kind kid. What do you want to do in that moment? You want to make out with him is what you want to do. You're like, first of all, you got to check if it's your child, right? You got to make sure that they're accurate because sometimes they get it wrong, you know. But when you have solidified the fact that it is actually your own personal tiny human, there is nothing short of saying like, do you want to come over for a barbecue? Like what? We got what? Like, oh, right. And you're handing compliments back. Like, that's a nice sweater. Oh, look at you with your high pony today. Do you understand? We are wired for connection. And when we are seen, when we are acknowledged, we will rise. So the first thing for me is really this idea of just naming it. How hard has it been? Tell me more. As a leader, I say this to my team. I have 13 people. Listen, you're not born a leader. You become one. Nobody has a script for this. Yeah? Here's the 3 words that I use with my team most every day. What am I missing? Especially when I don't think I'm missing a damn thing. And rarely am I. I mean, I'm usually they're basically lucky to have me as their leader. Okay. Now, I do not say that publicly in front of them frequently, but I mean, come on, damn it. I'm funny, you know. Anyway, when there is dissension in the ranks, when somebody's pissed off, I can smell it from the parking lot. Brene Brown, my Lord and Savior, Brene Brown says this to me. Clear as kind. What am I missing? What am I missing? Tell me more. Particularly when I don't. 10-minute warning. Emily. Take a back seat, girl. I am just getting warmed up. I'm just kidding. Okay. Anyway, the other 4 are really helpful, but let's just stick on that one for a second. Just kidding. Not really. Name and entertainment. Number 2, when I get to this place of putting emotion out into the world, guess what's going to happen? You are going to start to realize just how heavy it's been. It will feel heavy on your shoulders. So here's what I want you to do with me right now. I want you to drop it. Deep breath. Fill those lungs. Shake it out. You have held the weight of the world on those shoulders. The other thing that I say to my first responders is I want you to relax your ass. I won't say it to you, but I will say it to you, because here's what happens is women often will relax their shoulders, but they hold it in their core. If you have a dance history at all, your core is typically very tight. I don't know about this. I just watched Caitlin Bristow on Dancing with the Stars. But most of the time as women, we will hold our core tight and we'll be like, oh yeah, I'm totally relaxed, but we're not. So when you really want to take a break, I need your lungs to be able to fill with oxygen, which is where your prefrontal cortex will come back on. When I tell you to take a deep breath when you're emotionally dysregulated, it will not work. I have to show you. Drop those shoulders. I put a reminder on my phone. Every hour on the hour, there's just a little alarm, an alarm that goes off that reminds me to drop my shoulders, because when I'm emotionally regulated, I will serve. When I'm emotionally regulated, I will stay married. I will have the capacity to handle the hard things. And I need to do that for me, not for them, for me. Number 1, you feel it. Number 2, you drop your shoulders. Number 3, I want you to pay very close attention to what you're doing with your balls. Your eyeballs. These are the window to the soul. And for the next 3 to 6 months in particular, I want your balls to be up, to be out, to be connecting with your staff, your students, the people in your community. Because what happens when we experience, if you've ever known anybody who has clinical anxiety or depression, where's their eyes? Down. If you're in a state of grief or mourning, if you've just buried your best friend, you've lost your mama, where's your eyes? Down. These are the window to the soul. And when I'm emotionally dysregulated, these go away first. When I've experienced multiple generations of abuse, neglect, and trauma, I lose this. People say it's culturally specific, which is true, but I'll tell you there's certain cultures on this planet who have much more experience with trauma than other people, right? Being white and straight is a privilege. It also comes with a less typically traumatic history. The idea isn't to get eyes like this. That's fucking weird. Don't do that. The idea is to notice that when these are down, there is something up. If I don't feel comfortable in my own body, if I don't know who I am or how I'm to show up in this world, typically my eyes will be down. That is a clue to me, as somebody who loves you, cares for you, wants to teach you or mentor you, that I need to figure out why. I don't need an anti-hoodie policy. I don't need you to cut your hair. I need to know why. Tell me more. What am I missing? These are the window to the soul. Pay close attention to how you're waving in your community. Engage your neighbors as you got out. This is my favorite thing to do between my home and my office every morning, is I wave like I am on fire to most everybody. Now, we live in a farming community, and these little old farmers lose their mind most mornings because they're like, who is that, Ethel? Who's that? And here's what's I'm basically giving this community a gift, because I'm engaging the prefrontal cortexes of everybody over 75. You're welcome. We're going to be healthier 6 months from now. So it's this idea of how do you just engage? My husband is a farmer. He waves like this. Yeah. You don't want to commit, see, because if somebody doesn't wave back, you there's no rejection. You were just stretching. Yeah. Me, on the other hand, I am all in. Let's go. What's going on? Number 4, how I'm going to keep you sane in this process is gratitude. And gratitude gets a bad rap because when I tell my husband we got to practice gratitude, he's like, that is for people who intermittently fast and do yoga. I'm not practicing gratitude. And I'm like, okay, so here's what we have to do. I want you to just tell me what you're thankful for and why, when we sit into this moment about what we're thankful for, it pulls your prefrontal cortex back on. You cannot practice gratitude if you are emotionally dysregulated. And here's the really cool thing about that word, gratitude. It is a practice. If I leave you to your own devices, you will find all the shit that's going wrong. You are not good at optimism. We are not born from multiple generations of people who were just Mary Poppins. We came from a long line of people who said this to us, wait for it, somebody gonna die. It's too wet, it's too dry. People are gonna attack us. Huh? Oh, don't get cocky. Somebody's gonna get the cancer. Because multiple generations have been in this place where if we're not prepared for the worst, we won't be ready for it. If we don't think about every scenario that can go wrong, we won't be ready for it. It's not true. You can only hold two emotions in your head or one emotion in your head at one time. You can have mixed emotions, but one will always win. If I'm busy figuring out all the things that are going to go wrong, what am I missing? The things that are going right. So I say this to people who have buried their children. I say this to people who are stage 4, going to leave babies behind. Joy is a choice. And in the hardest moments, choosing to find something that I'm thankful for will take me back into that place of gratitude. Okay. Last but not least, kindness and grace is more contagious than the virus. Give it away. Any chance you get, give it away. It'll come back 3-fold, 5-fold. I don't know. I kind of made that number up, but whatever it is. No, I'm a doctor. 5 things. Feel it. Drop your shoulders. Do it one more time because I promise you they'll be up around your ears already. Shake it out. You've held a lot in the last few months. Use your balls. Gratitude, it's a practice. Do not give up on me. You got to do it a lot of times in the day to get good at it. Kindness and grace is more contagious than the virus. Give it away. Okay? So listen, Emily, I know we're at the wire here. I just wanted to see if there's any questions. Is there anything that you want me to address before we have to pop off?
Dr. Jody, incredible. I feel like I haven't laughed and cried in like such a lot, like in so long. So I'm just doing jazz hands for just that incredible hour that you allowed us to experience with you. So thank you so much. Kelly, yes, Annie loves the mug. Guys, what I would love for us to do as we wrap up this session is please put in the chat, what was your biggest takeaway from Dr. Jody's session? What was your biggest takeaway? Okay, so get that takeaway in here so we can read some of them out. Just everyone saying, amazing, love this, wow, so good, thank you, that was amazing, thank you greatly. You made a great sunshine in my life today. Oh, thank you, Melinda. A lot of people loving the cup. Fantastic. The last hour. Yeah, the last hour. Tell me more. When you are seen, you will rise. Oh, so many beautiful takeaways here. Mad is sad. When you are acknowledged, you will rise. Not today, Corona. Can you give us one of those, Dr. Jody? Not
today, Corona. This virus, that bitch, Rona, she's not going to push us around. No. Have they met us yet? No. Not today. We're all just walking each other home. I love it. Murphy Rowan.
Yes.
That's amazing. There's so many good things. And I think too, Clint, I mean, I'm so excited that you welcome me into your community. When you and I got to talk a couple of weeks ago, you just told me how proud you are of this inner circle and what an honor it is to walk them through some of their difficult seasons. And I feel the same way about our community. I jump on a live every morning at 7:15 Mountain, Monday to Friday. Join us if you're free. When you sit with the winners, the conversation is different. Do you understand me? When you sit with the winners, the conversation is different. And when things are really difficult, you need to be careful about what you're consuming. You need to be careful about who you're sitting with. It's not about, you need to feel it, but you also need people to remind you that you're doing holy work. And if you can survive this season, you are showing people how to do it in your communities. And it is such an honor to be able to sit with you today, because I hope that if there's anything you took away, you are phenomenally powerful, and so many people are looking to you. So thank you for giving me your time. I so appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jody.
We hope you love this sneak peek into our Inner Circle retreats as much as we did. And if you are ready to take your studio to the next level and join us live for these life-changing retreats, make sure to join our Inner Circle waitlist today at dsoa.com/innercircle.